Hey guys! Since in the last video I kind of redesigned Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf, I kind of wanted to do the same thing with Hyrule. I'll essentially be gathering my favorite parts of previous games and combining them into one to sort of make my ultimate Hyrule. I'll be talking about locations, races, monsters, and more that I would like to see return. I'm not saying I want these exact locations back, but more inspired by them, or callbacks. I also ended up making a bit of a quick makeshift story just to string the reason for exploring and starting your adventure. It's not like I want to see this story in a Zelda game per se, but I had to think of something. Breath of the Wild's Hyrule is a great basis with a lot of references, so I'll be using that as a base. Also, I personally am in the category where I'd love to see Zelda reeled back a bit with the open world and exploring everything whenever you want. I think that can definitely be a nice blend of linear and open world Zelda. So I'll try to kind of showcase how progression can be handled without having to rely on the shrine or memory mechanic every single time. Also, I know this is all very ambitious and there will never be a Zelda game exactly like this, but I still like to bring out my ideas, share them, and see what other people think about them. With that out of the way, I'll just quickly go over how I'm gonna tackle this. I'll start in the beginning province where I think the adventure should start. Like most other games, I split Hyrule up in a certain amount of provinces that you can explore to how your heart contents. Next, I'll be dissecting each part of Hyrule and how I think it should be explored. I'll be going over, of course, the landscapes, races you meet, items you require, gear to obtain, wildlife to encounter, monsters to battle, temples to explore, bosses to fight, deities to find, and music to hear. In the end, I'll be talking about collectibles like heart pieces, stamina vessels, and hidden skills you can find across the land. And with that, let's finally begin. We start off in my version of the Faron region. As a callback to Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess, I wanted to start out in another foresty environment since it gives the feeling of a cozy, well-knit community in one of the more simpler parts of Hyrule. Like those games, you start in another little village with families and kids that look up to you as the kind-hearted, strong warrior you are. I like to think this Link is a Hylian soldier, callback to A Link to the Past and Breath of the Wild, living peacefully in this village. Next to the village lies the Spring of Courage, where the villagers often pray and give their offerings to the goddess. However, it's becoming more dangerous with the sudden hostility of the returning Deku people and River Zora. Thus, Link travels through the swamp, behind a waterfall, to the River Zora's domain and Deku Palace, where both Deku King and Zora Queen have a problem, causing the tribes to be more hostile and restless. Link will go do a little mini dungeon to make the players comfortable with the mechanics and puzzle solving, and doing whatever he needs to put the tribes at ease. After that, you make your way towards Dueling Peaks as a landmark to embark on your journey to the castle. There were a couple items to obtain here. In the mini dungeon, you can get the slingshot as a dungeon item. With this, you can stun enemies. As thanks for helping the River Zora, you get the flippers, which help you swim on surface level. Throughout the forest, you can find Deku Seeds as ammo for your slingshot, Deku Sticks as the spendable light source, and a Deku Leaf, which makes you glide through the air as long as you have magic. Maybe from the mayor to give as thanks for helping, a lantern to light your way through the dark caves and other dim-lit environments. The armor pieces you can collect here are the standard village clothes with low defense, barbarian clothes with attack up, and a charge set that helps with resistance to electric attacks. The wildlife to encounter here are prominently monkeys like Twilight Princess, I believe other 2D games too, there are monkeys, who try to rob you, bees, bears, and boars who try to attack if you come close. As for regular enemies, this province is populated with, of course, the Deku Scrubs, which spit Deku Nuts at you, River Zora, who spit water at you from in the river, River Zora soldiers, who engage in close combat, and Deku Babas trying to bite you if you come too close. The boss of the mini dungeon will be a reimagined version of the classic NES boss, Manhandla, similar to Hyrule Warriors. And on your way to Dueling Peaks, there will be an oval boss waiting for you in the form of a stone talus. 3 returning reimagined songs I'd love to hear is TP's Ordon Village for in Link's hometown, Minish Cap, Minish Village, and Majora's Mask's Deku Palace for, of course, the Deku Palace. From this point, you can explore the rest of Hyrule, but the direction the game points you in will be a natural difficulty progression. This means you could go to the last region if you want, but the chance of a game over is way higher since it'll naturally have harder enemies, you have less hearts, and weaker equipment. But if you're up for the challenge, you are able to go. As you go to the castle, you can roam around in the bustling castle town, and even go into the Temple of Time if you're feeling nostalgic. Nearby of which is a cave entrance to a great fairy. To the southeast is a small village resembling Ocarina of Time's Kakariko Village. You hear from either Impa, the king, or Zelda herself that there are problems in the land of Hyrule and that the knights should dispatch to see what they can do and to find the sages for each region that can help with the imposing threat of Ganondorf looming over. You get your soldier's tunic and replace your wooden sword and shield for a soldier's sword and a Hylian shield, and are sent to the ranch nearby to get your horse if you need it. And yes, you can still catch wild horses if you want to, but in the ranch you can buy one, I guess. Sure, let's go with that. In Hyrule Field you can find the soldiers training camp east of the castle. South of the castle is Lon Lon Ranch where you can get your horse, but it's being attacked by bokoblins. You and the ranch girl fight them off like in Majora's Mask, and once you get your horse Epona, you also get the horse call with Epona song, so you can call her anytime you need. Roaming Hyrule Fields are Moblins and Choo-Choos. The ranch theme will again be Lon Lon Ranch from Ocarina of Time, and Hyrule Fields theme will be a rendition of Zelda 1's overall theme. The Temple of Time will again have its iconic song from Ocarina of Time. The castle has a rendition of A Link to the Past Castle's theme, Ocarina of Time's Prelude of Light, Battle of the Goddess from Skyward Sword, and Zelda's Lullaby, of course. And the small village has the Kakariko Village theme from Ocarina of Time. After going to Hyrule Castle and find out that there are things going on in the other provinces, the next objective is to go to Death Mountain and help the Gorons. In Eldin, you can find the Hot Springs, Spring of Power, Goron City, the Goron Mines, Death Mountain of course, and on top of Death Mountain, a Great Fairy. On the southeast base of Death Mountain in Akkala is now Hateno Village, looking out on a cliff towards an island on the sea erupting with lava. An NPC wonders if there's something inside, if the volcano could be cooled down. Once you've beaten the first temple, you will find the Goron Chief, the Sage of Fire. The race here are of course the Gorons living in and around Death Mountain, mainly being Hyrule smiths, and the return of the Magma, who are searching for treasures and gems. The Gorons will also still have boulder breakers as their main weapon. Obtainable items are the Goron bracelet to pick up heavier objects like rocks and bomb flowers, digging mitts to dig treasure in some spots and even find secret caves on the ground, a sledgehammer to break rocks. I should also probably add no more breakable weapons, but the sword is your main melee weapon that is most well-rounded. All other weapons merely act as items. They still deal damage, but your best bet for close-up encounters is your sword. Of course you can still be tactical and play with the other items you have. Oh my god, don't fall. Further, can you buy a bomb bag, which can be stocked with bomb flowers, or purchasing it from a shop. Later, when you inevitably get a bow, can you also craft bomb and fire arrows here. Lastly, in the fire dungeon, find the fire rod to set things and enemies on fire, as well to keep yourself warm. As for armor, you of course need a fire-resistant armor to explore Death Mountain, and you can find the miner set from the Magmas to add extra light while exploring dark areas like caves. It will add more light if you have the lantern equipped. Returning enemies, I'd love to see the Moldorms scurrying fast on the ground and the only weak point being the hard to hit tail, and the Dodongos with King Dodongo as an overall boss, moving slow, but the weak point on its tail only opens up from its armor when he sucks up and eats a bomb. I'd also love to see another dragon deity protecting this region, more serpent-like like Dinra, maybe being corrupt by malice or another instance of Ganon's evil, having to fight him like the dungeon boss. It gives a callback to Volvagia, Naedra, and in a sense Velu. I'd love if it's kind of like the Kokera battle. Perhaps this deity also threatened to eat Gorons, hence why we have to help cleanse it. Music I'd love to hear are Zelda 1's Death Mountain theme, much like in Breath of the Wild, but a bit less subtle. Ocarina of Time's Goron City, Breath of the Wild's Daruk's theme, and Majora's Mask's Goron's Lullaby in Goron City, with drums that are the Goron signature instruments. Link to the Past Cave theme with a woodwind instrument like in Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess. And of course Breath of the Wild Hateno Village for Hateno Village. After reporting back to the castle, they are impressed with how fast you are and your display of skill, saying the other dispatched soldiers have yet to make it back, so they promote you to Royal Guard, giving you the Royal Guard tunic. Next, we have to travel to the peaceful ocean Zoras. This will be the biggest area yet to explore since it's close to the sea. There's a crossroad. To the right is the ocean, to the left, Zora's Domain. To get to Zora's Domain, you first have to cross the wetlands and make your way up to a waterfall. Beyond the waterfall is Zora's Domain, in a beautifully lit cave, much like Ocarina of Time. The throne room where the Zora King resides is up outside with a pool of waterfalls, much like Twilight Princess. Together with the Zora Princess, who excels at using a spear, you have to go to the Water Temple that shares many of its assets with Breath of the Wild's Zora's Domain, Ocarina of Time's Water Temple, and Twilight Princess Water Temple, as well with a main room that resembles the ancient cistern from Skyward Sword. Here the Zora Princess awakens as the Sage of Water. If you travel back to the crossroad and choose right, you'll come across Hyrule's Promenade and the Hylian Citadel. Close to that, near some trees, is a small village resembling Mabe Village from Link's Awakening, where another great fairy is hidden behind a cave. Near the coast are some other small settlements and villages scattered around. One that's in a bay, resembling Great Bay from Majora's Mask, and one that looks like Outset Island from Wind Waker, where ships dock. If you purchase a ref there, reference to the original Legend of Zelda, you can first make your way to some nearby islands. One of them resembles Windfall Island. There you can use some materials to upgrade your raft to a small red sailboat, like in Wind Waker. From there, you can traverse to some further islands, but the residents warn you for a ghost ship that roams the seas at night. Homage to Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass. You can now reach to an ice-engulfed island and the Volcano Island. One island far in the distance has a big tower. That, my friends, is Tingle Island. Well, he'll make challenges for you to survive. I'll get into the reward a little bit later. In the Water Temple, you get water bombs to use underwater. Hint, hint. You can also get the fishing rod through a side quest with one of the coastal villagers. You can also obtain the Lens of Truth if you find and tackle the Ghost Ship mini dungeon. That probably works the same as Phantom Hourglass and Link to the Past, where you help an innocent girl who ends up to be the boss. More on that later too. In Zora's Domain, you can upgrade your Zora flippers for the Zora armor, which allows you to finally again swim in deep water and up waterfalls like a Zora. On the Outset Island, you can find Wind Waker's Outset outfit, which the villagers often wear on their birthdays as tradition. You can get this piece of armor by helping one of the villagers' kids out on giving him a great birthday that's coming up. On the Windfall Islands, you can get the Froggy armor that helps with climbing walls while it's raining or wet. Lastly, for completing the Tingle challenge, you will get Tingle's armor set. You still get the buff that makes you run fast like a goblin at night. As for monsters, you'll primarily encounter Octoroks, Lizalfos, Tektites, and this mini-boss from Twilight Princess that behaves a lot like frogs on your way to Zora's Domain. Near the Hylian Citadel resides a Hinox. Maybe you get something from it if you defeat it, like a hidden skill. Anyway, I don't see there are also a couple of monsters to encounter, like the Bomb and Bonefish from Twilight Princess, and those clam-like monsters residing on the ocean bed. And of course, you can sometimes find a whirlpool with a giant Octorok, as well as on the shore. Further, there are also little Gjorks, acting kind of like those sharks in Wind Waker. In the Water Temple, there will be two mini-bosses, kind of like Grave A Temple in Majora's Mask. And yes, you will have to deal with water levels. One of those mini bosses again is Warp. The other one is a big fan favorite. As soon as you enter that reimagined empty water room with one lone tree, you know what time it is. Your reflection disappears and you have to conquer yourself. Your own dark reflection, Darkling. As for the actual dungeon boss, I want to see a more threatening version of Morpheal. Just try to give me anxiety of deep water. As for that innocent girl mentioned in that ghost ship, that will be a Phantom Ganon. With your Lens of Truth, you have to uncover from which painting he'll come from and strike first. After a couple turns, it'll be the classic tennis match. This also references tricking Link with Puppet Zelda in other games. Zora's Domain should have the classic Zora's Domain theme again from Ocarina of Time, and I'd adore for the Water Temple to have the Serenade of Water as a theme, mixed in with Mipha's theme from Breath of the Wild. The Citadel theme can be a rendition of Nehru's song from Oracle of Ages, and Mabe Village should of course have the Mabe Village theme, as well as part where it references the Ballad of the Windfish from Link's Awakening. The Great Bay Village should have New Wave Bossa Nova from Majora's Mask. Outset should again have the Wind Waker's Outset Island theme, as well as Windfall having Windfall's theme, again from Wind Waker. The Ghost Ship should have a haunted version of Limebeck's theme from Phantom Hourglass. The music that plays while out on sea should be Wind Waker's Great Sea, again suiting the game style. And Tingle Island should have the music box theme from Majora's Mask. A lot of songs will be acoustic guitar to represent the Zora instrument. After returning to the castle again, they tell you that you're still the only one who made it back. Concerned, they promote you to captain and tell you to seek after the missing soldiers and order them to come back. As you change and are ready to leave, they notice a Triforce symbol on your hand. They ask you to first go to the Lost Woods. They have a hunch that you might find a weapon there that will aid you in your quest, and giving you a green tunic, saying that if anyone asks for proof that you're the legendary hero, you should wear it. Before you enter the Lost Woods, you have to cross the Great Bridge of Hylia. Underneath that bridge is a small laboratory and a beautiful fishing pond. Once you've crossed the bridge, you enter a stone arch that's covered in deep fog. As you navigate through the almost haunted looking woods, with a navigation map that Impa gave you, you find an exit showing bright light. You enter a small, almost fairy tale-like village, but it's oddly empty. You suddenly hear a deep voice beckoning you to come. You see the top of a big tree to the north of the village and head towards it. There you can see the legendary Master Sword and are introduced to the Deku Tree and the Koroks. You're asked for proof of being the legendary hero before you may pull the Master Sword and put on the iconic green tunic. With that, you can attempt to pull the blade.
You've been kept.
After the sword accepts you, the Deku Tree tells you that he can sense through his roots, and by stories of the Koroks, that the other soldiers have already perished, and that Link is the only survivor of his platoon. He tells you of Ganondorf and asks you to go to the Forest Temple, which is located to the south of the Korok village, which now is lively and filled with Koroks. At the end of the Forest Temple is the Forgotten Temple, a reference to the Seal Temple because, well, the Forgotten Temple is already an homage to the Seal Temple. But in Skyward Sword it was in the forest, so a Korok turns out to be the Sage of the Forest. The dungeon item will be the Tornado Rod, and you can purchase the Korok mask from one of the Korok shops. So as for monsters, to get across the Great Bridge of Hylia, you'll have to fight the King of Bokoblins, inspired by King Bulblin, on horseback, jousting him off the bridge. Throughout the Lost Woods are keys, and in the Forest Temple resides a lot of big Skulltulas. Sorry, arachnophobics. And the boss of the temple will be good old classic Goma. I'd love to have the Twilight Princess fishing pond music in the fishing pond. Maybe have Four Swords Lake Hylia theme as the theme for Lake Hylia. I'm trying to at least have one iconic song from every single mainline Zelda game. Can you tell? Of course, I really want Ocarina of Time's Lost Woods theme for the Lost Woods, but it is a bit upbeat for this more haunted version. So maybe the Twilight Princess version would fit better, if not even more haunting and slow version. They tried to have this haunted Lost Woods location in almost all Zelda games that have a Lost Woods, and they finally were able to do it with Breath of the Wild. So in my opinion, it can stay. It also looks very sick. It also works well with the more haunted forest temple that everyone loves, and it is a nice contrast to the lively Korok village. Speaking of Korok Forest, I'd love if it had the Twilight Princess Faron theme. As for the actual forest temple, I'd love to hear a reimagined version of everyone's favorite Ocarina of Time's forest temple theme, with maybe a hint of Minuet of Forest. And with that, we're halfway. This recording session is already taking a bit longer than I anticipated, so I think I might have to split this up into 2 parts. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much, and I hope I'll see you next time for part 2. Later!